Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most culturally significant and honestly psychologically fascinating figures in all of world literature. Now, if you're already familiar with the ancient Tamil epic, the Silappatikaram, you might initially just think of Madhavi as the other woman, the beautiful courtesan who tempts the merchant Kovalan away from his devoted wife Kanagi. But actually, to reduce Madhavi to a mere plot device is to completely miss the staggering genius of this text. Today, we're going to look closely at the source material to reveal that Madhavi is actually one of the most sophisticated, multidimensional female characters ever written in antiquity. I mean, she isn't just a dancer, she is an intellectual, a philosopher, a fiercely independent woman, and ultimately a remarkably powerful renunciant. Think of this as our syllabus for today's analysis. We're going to quickly map out her artistic excellence, her emotion and sacrifice, relationship psychology, her philosophical role, and finally, how she acts as a symbol of feminism.
All right, let's jump right into Part 1, Artistic Excellence and the Arangetram.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the sheer discipline required for her art is just staggering. According to the text, Madhavi began her royal education at just 5 years old, and for 7 continuous years, she underwent rigorous multidisciplinary training. We're talking about absolute mastery of Bharatanatyam, intricate musical theory, playing the Yaal, which, by the way, is a gorgeous ancient harp-like instrument, and mastering complex stagecraft and rhythmic poetry. By the time she reached age 12, she was ready for her Arangetram, her grand debut performance, which she performed directly in front of the Chola King himself, Thirumavalavan. And get this, her debut was so phenomenally flawless that it earned her a historically massive reward, exactly 1,008 kalanjuv of gold. To put that into perspective for a second, this wasn't just a polite tip for a good show. This was life-altering, generational wealth granted by the monarch himself. Along with all that gold, she was awarded the supreme title of Thalaikkole Arivai, marking her as the absolute zenith of artistic achievement in the entire kingdom. But to actually earn that title, the text details her performance of 11 traditional dances. We're talking about everything from Kodokotsi and Pandurangam all the way to Pavai and Kadayam. It is a completely overwhelming breadth of mastery. And these weren't just random pretty movements. Every single dance had a profound divine background, performed with total grammatical precision and emotive grace. By perfectly executing the whole shebang, she fulfilled the ancient Sangam aesthetic requirements of wonder, charity, and pride. Basically, she proved that her artistic beauty was the very engine that was going to drive the emotional shifts in the epic's narrative. Moving right along to Part 2, Emotion, Sacrifice, and her spiritual transformation. So the crucial point here is how her art actually triggers her tragedy. It perfectly illustrates the ancient concept of vinay, or karma, that unyielding law of cause and effect. It all begins with the famous Kanal Vari song. Madhavi is by the seashore, singing this beautifully emotive, incredibly nuanced song. But Kovalan, who frankly lacks her artistic depth, tragically misunderstands the poetic meaning. He suspects her of secretly loving someone else. And this single, awful misinterpretation leads to a bitter, abrupt separation, plunging Madhavi into immense suffering. Her highest artistic achievement accidentally triggers the absolute collapse of her personal world. Yet, it's actually in this suffering where her true character shines. She doesn't become bitter. Her love was genuine. The text shows her desperately sending 2 letters to Kovalan, practically begging to clear the misunderstanding and win him back. But when Kovalan is unjustly executed, well, Madhavi's reaction is absolute. She rejects the world entirely. In an act of profound renunciation, she shaves her beautiful, universally celebrated hair and embraces the path of a Buddhist nun. And crucially, she initiates her daughter, Manimekalai, into the spiritual life as well, entirely breaking the cycle of her courtesan lineage once and for all. Let's look at Part 3, the relationship psychology between Kovalan and Madhavi. If we look at this through a modern psychological lens, it's fascinating. On one side, we have Kovalan. Despite his wealth and high status, psychologically speaking, the guy is impulsive, highly suspicious, and emotionally unstable. He's easily captivated by surface beauty, but he totally lacks the grounding to actually trust it. On the other side, we have Madhavi. She is fiercely loyal, remarkably emotionally mature, and deeply empathetic. When you view their dynamic through the lens of attachment theory, you see that Kovalan's hasty, doubt-driven actions destroy a relationship that Madhavi desperately tried to save through genuine emotional transparency. And this brilliantly illustrates Part 4, her philosophical role and cosmic truths within the epic. The sudden, violent shattering of Madhavi's glamorous world
demonstrates the core philosophical theme of the Silappatikaram, the harsh illusion of permanence. I mean, one moment, she is literally the wealthiest, most celebrated artist in the kingdom, completely secure in her love. The very next, she's abandoned, her wealth is totally meaningless, and her art is unable to save her. It's a stark, almost brutal reminder to the reader that worldly attachments, no matter how beautiful, no matter how rich they might be, are always temporary.
But here is where it gets really interesting. The epic does not frame her end as a defeat. It frames it as spiritual elevation. It defines her journey as the ultimate transformation of immense worldly suffering into profound inner wisdom and detachment. By stepping away from society, she doesn't lose, she transcends. She completely outgrows her worldly identity as an entertainer and a lover, achieving a state of inner peace that the impulsive Kovalan never, ever could. Which brings us to part 5, modern interpretations of Madhavi as a symbol of feminism.
Now, modern gender studies often look at her through this fascinating concept of body equals self-determination. You see, in the strict social hierarchy of the time, as a courtesan, she was deeply marginalized. Yet, she utilized her physical mastery of dance and performance to gain direct respect from the king, accumulate massive wealth, and essentially run her own life. She transformed her physical body into an absolute tool for autonomy. She basically became the CEO of her own destiny.
There's also this incredible interpretation summarized by the phrase, art equals women's knowledge. In this view, her artistic authority wasn't just, light entertainment. It was a profound form of intellect. Her art had the sheer power to alter a man's mind, challenge the rigid structures of society, and literally shift the entire trajectory of the epic's narrative. Her knowledge was experiential, it was emotional, and it was entirely her own. What makes her so radically different from the expected norms of her era is her consistent exercise of independent choice. Every single major turning point in her life was self-determined. She chose her rigorous artistic life. She actively chose Kovalan as her lover. And most powerfully of all, she chose her own spiritual renunciation. She wasn't forced into a monastery by a tragic fate. She made a conscious, highly intellectual decision to step away from a society that had brought her suffering, completely subverting every traditional social expectation placed upon a woman of her standing. Let's wrap this up with our conclusion. The timeless voice of Tamil civilization. So, what does this all mean? When we pull all of these threads together, we witness an incredibly empowering climax to her character arc. Who is Madhavi? Well, she is a character who begins in the realm of absolute physical and artistic perfection, navigates the agonizing realities of human emotional fragility, and arrives at supreme self-mastery. She transforms external beauty into inner wisdom. She is not just a woman from an ancient poem, she's the pinnacle of art, the depth of love, the embodiment of philosophical growth, and a lasting icon of feminine strength. The next time you think of epic heroes, you really have to ask yourself, do any of them have a journey quite as complex and quite as beautifully human as hers? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to explore the Silappatikaram for yourself.